Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know in my last video I said I wanted to take a look at Robocop 2, and while I am rewatching that and taking notes for the next video, I wanted to take a look at Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation, a 2014 game, came out on all current platforms. A real survival horror game. Obviously, with it being from the first person perspective, I think a lot of people were expecting a lot more of an action-packed shoot the aliens kind of game, but what they got was an unkillable, unpredictable alien, a lot of hiding, a lot of crafting, and surviving. Obviously it was marketed in the correct way as a survival horror, and while being a fantastic game, in my humble opinion, it still didn't quite do the numbers that Sega were hoping to do, and as a result I think Sega has now passed on the rights to Alien to another company who is now working on something else, and it looks like there might never be a sequel to this game. And I don't know, like, there will be spoilers in this video, so anyone that's never played it, I urge you to go out and buy a brand new copy of this game and play it. It's not very expensive anymore, it's been out a few years, but it's absolutely worth every penny that you will spend on it. And we're going to be talking about spoilers here, so, you know, it's a few years old, but I thought it was worth mentioning. The end of this game begs for a sequel. It begs for it. The protagonist is left floating in space, and that's it. And then a shadow passes and it looks like she's going to open her eyes, cut, credits, that's it. Now if ever there was a game that begged for a sequel, it's this one. I really hope that one day Creative Assembly gets the chance to do it again and, like, you know, continue the story of Amanda Ripley. Amanda Ripley being Ellen Ripley, Sigourney Weaver's character, her daughter. You hear her in a brief sort of character development moment in the director's cut of Aliens, the second film, and that she died of old age, and Ripley had promised that she'd be back for her 11th birthday and she never did, which all these years later presents a perfect gap in the chronological story of Ellen Ripley's character to exploit and explore. Not only is the story great, definitely not just a simple here's a gun, go shoot everything, which is brilliant, Doom 2016, but there's layers to it. There's so many different things to find, and the whole space station that you get stranded on is there to explore, especially in later levels once you have built your character up and you're able to build and find blueprints to build more and more things to keep you alive, essentially. It's strange. It's hard to describe because it makes you feel claustrophobic, but it feels like an open world game, even though it does follow a very linear path throughout the game. You feel like you are playing a linear story, but at the same time you feel like there are open areas that you can just go and explore and find secrets. And speaking of the story, the one of the best things about this game is that it takes up only about 15 years after the events of the first Alien game. Now, geeks like myself know that there is a 57-year gap between Ellen Ripley's encounter and then going into cryosleep and the beginning of the sequel film, the Aliens. So 15 years after the first film, you have a grown-up Amanda Ripley, and pretty much everything technology-wise looks 1979 vision of the future. There are buttons to press, there are tape recorders, there are key cards, everything's physical, you have to press everything. It's brilliant. The aesthetics of the game make you feel like you are wandering around in the world that was first presented to us in that first film. Like, it was mind-blowing to wake up out of a cryo chamber and then be on a sister ship to the original Nostromo. And to walk around, I knew where I was going. I've seen that film so much that I walked around the ship and I knew where everything was somehow. I don't know. I don't know how. You walk into the medical bay to speak to I've forgotten his name. the android, is it Jensen? Android Dr. Guy, you then go straight over to the sort of the cockpit, essentially the main room on the ship, and that looks almost exactly like the Nostromo. It's probably in a bit better nick. There's no gaffer tape around the headrests and things like that like there was in the original movie, but it's an exact carbon copy. It looks exactly the same, and you feel like you're walking through that ship, and it's brilliant. So many things to mention. Not only is the main story of the game brilliant, but the survival modes and challenge modes and things like that are also really good and engaging and creepy to all hell. My first playthrough of the full story, I was terrified. Mainly just because of the sound design. It's so creepy and atmospheric. There are noises happening. You go into a tunnel or an air shaft, and there's noises happening behind you. And I didn't even have headphones on. I could hear it. At the time, I had a Kinect, and I played this on my Xbox One, and I could have had all sorts of extra things set on this game, like if you tilt your head, the character's head tilts on screen. If you make too much noise, the alien hears you and comes at you. And I knew I had to turn all of that off because I knew I was going to be screaming and shouting, and I was. And my only regret is I didn't have a capture device or a decent camera at the time. Now, speaking of the challenge modes and all that extra curricular activity, there is a bunch of DLC for this. Mainly are all like things like just challenge modes and so on. But I think the crowning jewel of these things are the two scenarios. Ellen Ripley's character at the end of the original movie, and one where all the original actors that were left at that part of the film reprise their roles, and you get to play that moment where they decide they're going to find it and trap it. You can play from that moment on, and you can choose one of all the characters that are left, and you're going around the original Nostromo and you feel like you are a part of the movie, and it's just great. It was a genius stroke by the developers to add that in. Now at this point I realised that you guys have either already seen so much footage you feel like you've played it anyway, or you've actually played it. But for those that haven't, I really hope I'm selling this, because I want as many people to play this game as possible, because not only is it probably better than the prequels that are coming out through Ridley Scott. I hate saying that because I do like those movies as well, but it is better. It's just it's a fantastic idea. It's a really fun game, especially if you like being terrified, because you do spend that game being terrified. Now I did hear a lot of complaints for that like they couldn't last through the game because it's exhausting being that terrified all the way through the game, but it does keep you on your toes, and if you're a fan of horror you won't find it terrifying, but you will find it keeps you on edge at least, and it makes you more vigilant than you would be with like just a normal first person shooter. And it's just like, oh, there's so much, and I know I'm missing a ton of stuff out. For instance, there's a part of the game where you jettison the alien off into space and you somehow survive the whole ordeal. Go find out what the ordeal is. That's your job, not mine. And then something happens to the working Joe androids that are all aboard, and they're supposed to be maintenance and, you know, helping humans do what they do and everything on the space station, but they all malfunction, and if you walk into certain areas on that station they will come after you and they will start trying to kill you basically. A lot of people complained about that as well. I found it a welcome break in gameplay, because you spend all that time being terrified of the alien and you don't know when it's going to come or where it's coming from or anything like that. Then you manage to get rid of it, then there are just heavy stealth elements, like more similar to other games, because you're dealing with a bipedal humanoid rather than a terrifying xenomorph. The working Joes are difficult to get rid of unless you've found certain blueprints that will make life a lot easier. So the best thing to do is, as soon as you're out of the door, As soon as you are into the game, explore everything. Open every door, open every chest, pick up everything you can and just build your inventory. And then you will find blueprints. When you find these blueprints, it means you can put to use everything that you've collected, and you can build things. You can distract them, even the alien. You can get the alien to leave you alone if you've got fire of any kind with the working jaws. That's what the guns are for in the game. But this is by no means like you suddenly become like an army commando once you pick up a gun in this game. It's awkward, it's slow, and this is what a lot of people had a problem with, but I find it to be a genius stroke, because you're not a commando, you're an engineer. So holding a shotgun would be an awkward, slow thing. So the gameplay becomes avoid, back off whilst you're trying to take aim, and aiming is difficult in this game, you know, there's no assist. It's a form of realism in the game where everything else is completely unrealistic. So it's like I say, it's a welcome pace change to the gameplay. Once you've gone through all that and taken out all the working Joe androids and everything, all hell breaks loose after that, and then you're on your own. You guys find out what that is if you don't know already. Those that do know, you know, when you go down and there's like loads of that stuff, and then, you know, that is it. Literally, I just wanted to ramble on about Alien Isolation and my fandom for that game, and the appreciation I have for the storyline and how true they kept to the original film. And it was great to not just have like a running gunning type Alien game. Like the AVP games were great, but they were good for that purpose. And Colonial Marines, if it weren't for the myriad of technical problems with that game, I could have maybe suspended my disbelief and got into the idea of it, but it was not a good game, and I was very disappointed about that. And it was an attempt to cash in on the Aliens fandom, and I think it got to a point when that came out and flopped that it was a really good idea and a genius marketing move to move the series in a much more towards the original idea of the films. Was like, essentially the first film is the film equivalent of a survival horror. That's just what it is. It's claustrophobic, it's terrifying, there's an unknown presence and like an unseen presence. And that's what you feel like in this game, that there's always something kicking around somewhere, either above you or below you or possibly behind you, you know? Yeah, that's it. That is absolutely it. Please, if you have not already bought this game, go out and buy it, play it. It is well worth every single cent or penny you will pay for this game. And then go buy all the DLC. They're only pounds and dollars, like $1 or $2 here, £1 or £2 there. You know, it's well worth it, all of it. Like, and all the DLCs can be bought in a bundle, a season pass bundle, and it's just so cheap. It's like £5 something, and it's really worth it. Once you've got the whole thing, you'll go through the campaign and you will want to play more. And that's what those bits of DLC are for, and they're well worth it. I work in a game shop now, and I always recommend this game to people. Some people take it home and have come back and said thank you, because they are fans of the Alien movies and hadn't realised this game would come out. Gamers know and knew when it came out and were either looking forward to it, or after Colonial Marines, understandably, were going to steer well clear. But fans of the movies, you really want to play this game. You don't have to be an amazing player to be able to enjoy this game, and especially feel the fear. Also, I recommend going back and watching other YouTubers play through the game. Like, obviously PewDiePie did a playthrough of it. Every video is hilarious, and he goes right through it. Markiplier did it. There's countless people doing the playthroughs. There's also people hooking themselves up to heart monitors and playing the game, and you get to see what playing the game does to you on a physical level. Can't recommend it enough. Go watch the videos. Please go buy the game and buy the DLC and everything. And I'm acting like this is paid promotion, but it's not. It's like I'm relying on you guys to get me a sequel. That's it. I want a sequel to this game. Go out and buy it. I've already bought it twice. I expect everybody else to do the same. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one, which hopefully will be the RoboCop one, unless I break operations to have a bit of a rant about something like today. But yeah, bye Alien Isolation.
Danger. The emergency destruct system is now activated.